Good morning. My name is Jan Shea, and on behalf of First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware, I welcome you to our worship service. I'm so glad to be here with you today serving as worship associate. First Unitarian Church is a welcoming congregation. No matter the color of your skin or the origin of your ethnicity, no matter where you are on your spiritual journey, and no matter whom you love, you are welcome here. If you are new to First Unitarian, I invite you to check out our website, firstuuwilm.org, to learn more about us and to sign up for our email newsletter. Over the next weeks, we worship associates have decided to feature one of our 7 UU principles as we welcome you. Today, I invite you to consider the 4th principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The Reverend Paige Getty of the UU Congregation of Columbia, Maryland, offers this insight. This privilege calls us not to be isolated and self-centered, believing that our single perspective trumps all others, but rather to be humble, to be open to the great mysteries of truth and meaning that life offers. And those mysteries may speak to us through our own intuition and experience, but also through tradition, community, conflict, nature, and relationships. Now, just a quick reminder for those of you present in the sanctuary regarding some of our guidelines for meeting in the building and on the grounds. They include leaving our masks on at all times unless we have a speaking role. We will not be singing during the hymns, but you may certainly hum or otherwise express yourself as the Spirit moves you. There will be no coffee hour, and we ask that you not gather in the building following the service. We do invite you to gather on the lawn to the left of the entrance to greet one another afterwards. But please stay masked and maintain social distancing.
Thank you so much for that music. I want to add my welcome to Jan's To those of you who are joining us in the sanctuary or online, I'm the Reverend Larry Piers. I have the joy of being minister here at First Unitarian Church of Wilmington. I hope that over this weekend, you've had some moments of giving thanks, some moments of connecting with friends, family, and loved ones. Today, we begin our series of winter celebrations with the celebration and the acknowledgement of Hanukkah. My opening words are these. Hanukkah is about the inner healing light within each of us. Hanukkah is about a time when we can celebrate the inner healing light as we move towards wellness. Hanukkah is a time when we can celebrate this inner healing. It's also a time to celebrate the fact that the teleprompter is going back and forth to so many slides that I'm trying to stay steady. So Hanukkah is about the miracle of survival against all odds, about hope, about courage, and belief in one's ability to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to join me by lighting it now as we light our chalice along with our Advent wreath and Shamash candle to these words from David Breeden. In this holiday season, may the darkness of winter be dispelled in this festival of lights, and may the darkness of ignorance be dispelled in the strength of compassion, reason, and sharing. Please join me in affirming our mission. First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits, fights injustice, and transforms the world through loving action.
Tonight begins a special time when Jewish families all over the world celebrate freedom and miracles. This wonderful celebration is called Hanukkah. Have you ever heard the story of Hanukkah, the Maccabees, and the miracle of light? The story of Hanukkah happened a long, long time ago in the land of Israel. At that time, The Holy Temple in Jerusalem was the most special place for the Jewish people. The temple contained many holy and beautiful objects. The Torah, or the Jewish Bible, was kept in the temple, and a tall menorah that was golden was always lit in the temple. Unlike menorahs of today, this one had 7 rather than 9 branches and was lit not by candles or light bulbs, but by oil. Every evening, oil would be poured into the cups that sat on top of the menorah. The temple would glow with a shimmering light. At this time, a cruel king named Antiochus ruled over the land of Israel. He thought, the Jewish people are so different from me. I don't celebrate Shabbat or read the Torah, so why should they? Antiochus ordered the Jewish people to stop being Jewish and to pray to Greek gods. No more going to the temple, no more celebrating Shabbat, and no more Torah, Antiochus proclaimed. He sent his guards to ransack the temple. They brought a statue of Zeus into the temple. They broke furniture, tore curtains, and smashed the jars of oil that were used to light the menorah. This made the Jewish people very angry. One Jewish man named Judah Maccabee cried out, "We must stop Antiochus. We must think of ways to make him leave the land of Israel." At first, Judah's followers, called the Maccabees, were afraid. "Judah," they said, "Antiochus has many soldiers, and they carry such big weapons. He even uses elephants to fight the battles. How can we fight against him?" Judah replied, "If we think very hard and plan very carefully, we will be able to defeat him." It took a long time, but at last the Maccabees chased Antiochus and his men out of Israel. They fought for their freedom and they won. The Jewish people went back to their temple and cleaned and repaired it. When they were finished, they were ready to rededicate it to God. They needed to light the menorah. At first, they worried that they would not be able to light their menorah because the oil jars were destroyed by Antiochus and his men. But the Jewish people searched and searched and searched until at last they found one tiny jar of oil, enough to light the menorah for just one evening. The Maccabees knew that it would be at least 8 days until they could prepare more oil, but they lit the menorah anyway. To their surprise, this little jar of oil burned for 8 nights. The Jewish people could not believe their good fortune. First, their small army chased away Antiochus's large army, and now the tiny jar of oil lasted for 8 entire nights. It was a miracle. Now, thousands of years later, Jewish people still celebrate this miracle of the light that lasted 8 nights and their freedom to believe and worship as they choose. They bring out their menorahs, a beautiful candle holder with room for 9 candles. There are now 8 candles for each night the oil burned, and an extra candle called the shamash, a candle to light all the other candles. For 8 nights, people of the Jewish faith light the candles, adding one each night, and they do things together on each of the nights. They gather family together. They play dreidel, a spinning top, together. They eat potato latkes together. They sing songs together. They share simple gifts together. They eat jelly donuts together. They find chocolate gelt together. They say blessings together. On the 8th night, all the candles burn brightly. Everyone remembers the story of the fight for freedom and the miracle of the lights. I wonder how the miracle of the light that lasted 8 nights happened. I wonder if you ever experienced something that you didn't expect, didn't think would happen, that feels like a miracle to you.
Join me now as we attend to the inner wisdom of Hanukkah. May we hear the invitation to stillness as we let go of striving. If even for the briefest time, may we enter the place of inner noticing and let the judging slip away without much effort. May we allow the possibility of miracles arriving even when we don't expect them, even when they stretch our understanding of what is doable. The everyday contains miracles enough. When in the stillness, when in the noticing, when in the allowing, may our eyes open, may our hearts unfold, and may our imagination expand. Join me now as we enter a time of shared silence. And during this time, attend to the hopes and to the concerns in your own heart. These may be hopes or concerns that you have for yourself or for others in the world. And after this shared silence, there will be an invitation to hear names or the concerns aloud in this sanctuary or write them in the chat. So let us join now in a time of silence. Speak aloud now the name or the concern that you have, or write it in the chat. What are the concerns and joys in your heart today. May all whose names were spoken and those unspoken find peace and healing this day. Before we do our reading, I want to begin the lighting of this menorah, one candle. Obviously, this is usually done in the evening, but as a way to kind of honor the celebration that we're part of today, I'd like to take this servant candle, this helper candle, this shamash, and light that candle. There's always more light, more love, more justice that can come into our lives and into the world, and we honor that by lighting this menorah. Our reading: you're not supposed to work while the candles burn. You're not supposed to speak while the candles devour themselves and transform themselves. From substance to spirit, from matter to light, from wax to air, from something you can hold to something you can only recall and feel. You're not supposed to work while the candles burn. You're not supposed to read by their light or write by it. You're not supposed to check off your December to-do list or address holiday cards or compute your year-end tax deductions while the candles burn.
You're not supposed to use these candles to light each other. They're not supposed to perform any function except to eat themselves up, and as they're doing that magic of disappearing while at the same time becoming something else. They're meant to slow you down and force you to focus and make you aware of a miracle. Hanukkah brings with it 8 days of partial Shabbat that last at least a half hour while the candles burn. Miracles happen all the time, but if we've forgotten how to see them, if we've lost the skill of looking, of seeing and receiving and being satisfied, then even fire, with its red and gold and blue triangles and thin black streak of soot ascending, will go unnoticed, and our own chances for transformation will have gone up in smoke, even as the candles burn.
So let's take a moment, Jan, and everyone else, and watch the candles burn. In these weeks ahead, Jews celebrate Hanukkah, as we've mentioned. Christians celebrate Advent and Christmas. Those from the earth-based traditions celebrate winter solstice or Yule. And Unitarian Universalists, we celebrate them all. To the outside observer, and sometimes even to ourselves, it can seem like Unitarians are doing some channel surfing through these winter holidays during this time of year. One of the worst phenomenon that I've seen is in those Unitarian Universalist congregations where they try to celebrate all of the holidays in one service. That to me is like going to a all-you-can-eat buffet and just filling your plate with everything that's there just because you can. Well, indeed, we can and we will celebrate these holidays of this winter season, but we won't have to feel compelled to celebrate them all in one sitting. We can linger in each. We can savor what there is to savor in each. We can give ourselves an opportunity to really digest our experiences along the way. We can allow ourselves to receive the message and the meaning that each holiday has for us at this particular time, at this season in our own soul. We can celebrate them one at a time because we know that as Unitarian Universalists, that to be human religiously means for us to find the universal in the particular. To take time to hear the music behind the words. To discover personal meanings in what otherwise would merely be only someone else's myths, someone else's stories, and someone else's practices. To truly endeavor to discover the holy in unexpected ways and from various sources requires each of us to have an openness of heart, to have an expansion of our mind, and a reception in our spirit. So what can be some of the particular messages of Hanukkah? Well, in any religious festival or celebration, there's always an intermingling of history and of story, of fact and of imagination. Likewise with Hanukkah. We transmit all of our sacred stories, not because we're giving history lessons, but because there's something embedded in these stories that convey hope, that stir wonder, and that cultivate mystery within us. Consequently, Hanukkah is part history and part story. And both history and story can provide meaning to us. In fact, at different times in the Jewish tradition, the history of the uprising against the repression of religious liberty and of freedom was emphasized. And at other times, the story of the miracle of Hanukkah was emphasized. The history, as you know, you heard a little bit of this morning, is based on the revolt led by the Maccabees against the rule of the Hellenistic-influenced king Antiochus, who had decreed that all local religions, including Judaism, be rooted out of his kingdom. If any Jews dared to continue their rituals, even Shabbat, they risked being killed. In their place, Greek pagan rituals and sacrifices became the order of the day, not only at shrines throughout the land, but as we heard, even at the holy temple of the Jews. Now, some Jews who admired the customs and the culture of the Greeks followed these decrees of the ruler. Other Jews were outraged, not only by the decrees, but also by their fellow Jews who had cooperated, who had assimilated in such a way to recklessly discard some of the sacred traditions of the Jewish people. The Maccabean forces recaptured Jerusalem in 166 before the Common Era and set out to rededicate the Holy Temple. So we can find meaning in the history of Hanukkah to remind ourselves that even in some of the darkest moments of history, resistance and oppression and spiritual defiance are necessary. In fact, spiritual defiance and resistance to oppressive forces are our way to truly live out our human vocation to co-create the world again and again. Hanukkah reminds us that we can and we must rise up against whatever puts uneven limits on human dignity and human freedom. Hanukkah means dedication, and we need to remind ourselves of the practice of rededication even in our time. Even in our time, when refugees fleeing the impacts of climate change are shunned by some of the world who helped contribute to the climate emergency. Even in our time, when equality under the law can seem to depend upon the color of one's skin. Even in our time, when the poor, the elderly, the sick, the marginalized, and the most vulnerable suffer threats to their own well-being, while we continue to overfund war and the preparations of war in what one writer recently called America's worship of the Penta-God. Even in our time, when the overexploitation of the resources of the earth can threaten those who are already most vulnerable, not to mention, even in our time, when our own earth home is in jeopardy. Even in our time, we must resist. We must find spiritual power to add to our voices a protection of the common good that holds and serves us all. Even in our time, we must rededicate ourselves to, as the Hebrew prophet Micah admonished us, to act justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly with our God, and I would add, to walk humbly upon our earth. So the historical story of Hanukkah reminds us to engage in spiritual defiance to the structures that oppress and to rededicate ourselves whenever necessary, again and again, to bring more love, more justice, more light into this world. And of course, we can also find meaning in the story of Hanukkah. I believe that the story of Hanukkah invites us into an inner rededication. As the story is told, when in the process of cleaning out the temple of its debris and preparing for the rededication of the temple, the Jews discovered just one bottle of oil that had not been defiled by their interlopers. And in this bottle, there was enough oil for only one day. Yet, as the story goes, even that short supply, in spite of that short supply, they decided to proceed. And behold, as the story goes, the lamp continued to burn and burn and burn for 8 days. The Jewish commentator Arthur Waskow, in his book, Seasons of Our Joy, a modern guide to Jewish holidays, explains the single bottle of oil symbolized the last irreducible minimum of spiritual light and creativity within the Jewish people, still there in its worst moments of apathy and idolatry. The ability of that single jar of oil to stay lit for 8 days symbolized how with God's help, that tiny amount could unfold into an infinite supply of spiritual riches. Friends, isn't it hard enough at times to find even that tiny amount, that tiny bit of energy, of hope, or of inspiration? Yet even in its tiniest amount, maybe that's all that is needed. Maybe that's just enough to ignite the possibility of that infinite supply of spiritual riches that otherwise might lie dormant within us and among us. At times, don't we feel that we are not enough? That we will never be enough? But yet, the story of Hanukkah reminds us that we may be judging ourselves prematurely, too quickly, and assessing some insufficiency in ourselves, as if we are just that one bottle of oil that's left, and we fail to recognize more of who it is that we are and who it is that we can become. My friends, don't we often fail to see possibilities all around us? All around us. Certainly, as Albert Schweitzer reminds us, at times our own light does go out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. And he continues, each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. I hope that each of us have taken some time over this Thanksgiving weekend holiday to recognize and to acknowledge, even just to ourselves, those who have ignited a spark within us, in our life, most likely at times when we needed it most desperately. Those who continue to give light to our life, those we can feel a sense of gratitude toward as we receive the blessing of their presence in our life. There's a reason this Hanukkah story is told again and again. You know what that reason is? We need it. We need the reminder of this story. Hanukkah is our reminder, I believe, that we live by both reason and imagination, and neither alone is enough. Rabbi Arthur Waskow expressed it in this way: at the moment of utter darkness at the temple, when it would have been rational to wait for more oil to be pressed and consecrated, the Jews ignored all reasonable reasons and lit the little oil that they had. The real conflict, he continues, is between apathy and hope. Apathy and hope. Between a blind surrendering to darkness and acting to light up the pathways. Seen in this way, he continues, Hanukkah can become a resource to help us experience our moments of darkness whenever they occur throughout the year, and in those moments strike new sparks. As I reflected on that quote from Waskow, I recognize that indeed there are so many ways that we can reason ourselves into wanting to give up. There are so many ways that we can reason ourselves into not continuing to hope. So many ways that we can reason ourselves into giving up the struggles for peace, for justice, or for a true and broader prosperity of body, mind, and spirit. There's so many ways that we can reason ourselves to shrink from our care for the common good. There's so many ways that we can reason ourselves into giving up on another. Let's face it, the evidence for continuing to hope, for continuing to struggle, to care, and to continue to give is shaky at best. Yet as humans, we do not live by reasons or reason alone. Sure, we hold ourselves together like a tent that's tethered by spikes into what we hope is sturdy ground. We clutch to our collection of facts, to our perceptions of reality, to what we believe is real or is possible. Yet it is more than facts alone that have held the flapping sides of the tent of ourself together. If it were only facts, we might not act to light up new pathways. We could have collapsed in despair years ago. Think about it today as we sit in each other's company. We are a testimony to not just what is. We are a testimony to what has got us through what is. What has got us through the death of a loved one. What has got us through the failing health or capacities in ourselves or those we love. We are testimonies to what has got us through heartache. If there were not a perseverance within us much greater than reasons alone. The ground beneath us would have given way through our torrent of tears. The winds of anxiety would have completely blown us away. The poles of our flimsy tent of a self would have given in. And yet, here we are. Here we are, as sturdy as we can be, as resilient as we can be, as hopeful as we dare to be. In the midst of life's circumstances and real challenges, we are a testimony to the perseverance of the light. Something more than our reasons alone hold us up, sturdies us, and tethers us to a hope that we may not be able to see or explain, a hope that we may not be able to prove or provide rational evidence for, but the hope is still there. I know that I join some of you when I reflect upon my own experience at age 40, when I lost my spouse. At the death of that spouse, I felt a grief so heavy in my heart, I could not move it away alone. At that moment, I felt that the world as I knew it had shattered in some way and the ground had become shaky. But yet, in that moment also, I began to experience an aspect of life that was always there. But then I began to realize that life is a gift, that it's a precious and gracious gift, that it's wondrous, and that I should not take for granted that which surrounds me and surrounds all of us. I know some of you have joined me in those kinds of moments. Each week when I gather with the group of us who are in my class on poetry as a tool for wellness, there's a woman that gathers with us who has recently experienced the death of her own spouse. And when she shares with us her reflections, when she shares with us her poetry that she writes in the moment, I feel like she is that helper candle. I feel kindled and radiant and inspired by what she shares in this moment, at this juncture, at this threshold in her own life. And as I look at other participants that are on the screen or in the room, I know that we are ignited by her persistence, her perseverance as well. This week, when I met with some folks who were involved in our ministry of independent living for young adults, and they told me the stories of those people who are helped at a time when all the supports around them may be eroding, and here we come and give them tangible and real assistance and support. I know that we are like that servant candle that perhaps gives them some spark of hope that otherwise might not be there. Do you agree with me? Next Sunday, we're going to have a remembrance in our service. And I've asked people who have lost a loved one, a friend, over the last year plus during this pandemic and may not have been able to grieve in the usual ways, to come to that service either online or in the sanctuary and light a candle. I've invited them to share with me a digital photo of that person, and I have had the blessing of opening those emails and seeing those faces and knowing that there will be an opportunity to share the radiance of that life, if only as simply as by lighting a candle, but also igniting and honoring the memory of those persons. There is this indomitable spirit that I believe underlies all of our religious and our human traditions of this season. During the darkest time of the year, we not only crave these reminders, we testify to them. Our candles and our bonfires, our carols and our evergreens, our wreaths and our menorahs are like signals sent to us across time from generation to generation that preceded us. And these stories, these rituals, these practices are like signal flares that we are sending out to future generations. The story reminds us of what we already know, that we have to find ways to regenerate hope. Our lives and our moods, they ebb and they flow. And we can look to one another for sources of strength, courage, and inspiration to sustain us. We may strain to know the deeper sources of strength within and among us as well, known in various ways and known by various names. We dare to continue to hope, to struggle, and to give, not because of what has been or because what we fear will be, but because all we really have is this moment in which we know in our heart of hearts that what we bring to this moment, the hope, the faith, the determination, is what really matters. The sparks of what is holy and what is whole exist within each of us, and like individual candles in a menorah, there can be an inner radiance within each of us that is waiting to be ignited. And together, we can be a radiant community, a menorah of candles of such that's persistent in bringing light and being light to others. So may it be.
Light one candle for the Maccabee children, with thanks that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when their right to exist was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice freedom and justice demand. But light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our hopes and our tears. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own foe. Light one candle for those who are suffering. Pain we learned long ago. Light one candle for all we believe in. Let anger not tear us apart. And light one candle to find us together with peace as the song in our hearts. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our hopes and our tears. Always believing that justice would somehow prevail. This is the burden, and this is the promise, and this is why we will not fail. Don't let the light go out, let it shine on for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our hopes and our tears. Don't let the light go out.
Now I'd like to take a moment to turn to the topic of stewardship, an important aspect of church life. As mentioned earlier, our fourth principle focuses on the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. This principle is one that drew me to Unitarian Universalism way back when. I enjoy and am enriched by being in a community of people that, rather than accepting predictable and unsatisfying dogma, relish this search and the responsibility that comes with it. Reverend Paige Getty continues her reflection on the fourth principle with these words. As a faith tradition, Unitarian Universalism makes sacred the right and responsibility to engage in this free and responsible quest as an act of religious devotion. Institutionally, we have left open the questions of what truth and meaning are, acknowledging that mindful people will, in every age, discover new insights. Here at First U, I have experienced encouragement in my own search and have been enriched by the viewpoints and discoveries of my fellow members, and I am grateful to share this journey with all of you. My financial commitment to the life of First U is an integral way to demonstrate how much I value an environment that invites and enhances this search. And I hope you will join me in continuing to contribute to First U's endeavors. There are 4 ways to give to First U, as detailed on the screen. Your contributions are greatly appreciated. And now, please join me in dedicating our offering. to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings.
Thank you for adding so much to our service with your music. I also want to thank all of you for showing up today, whether online or in the sanctuary. We can be sources of support and inspiration to one another. It goes without saying that without the volunteer effort of our AV team and our AV staff, we would not be able to stay connected even though we're meeting in different places. So I want to thank them as well for all of the work that they do to make this connection possible. Yeah, you can clap, it's fine. Our closing words: learn to light a candle in the darkest moments of someone's life. Be the light that helps others to see. It is what gives life its deepest significance.
As Reverend Larry extinguishes our chalice, I offer these words from Amy Zucker Morgenstern. When we take fire from our chalice, it does not become less, it becomes more. And so we extinguish our chalice, but we take its light and warmth with us, multiplying their power by all of our lives and sharing it with the world.